far would you go to stand your ground? In Australia, we don't have stand your ground laws. So essentially, we're not that covered if we were to defend our home from an intruder that came in. The law is kind of straightforward, but kind of also not. So the general premise is that if you escalate the force beyond a reasonable level, then you are liable for things like assault or grievous bodily harm, or in some cases, actual murder. It's quite vague and it does vary slightly from state to state, but generally it's sort of, just say an intruder came in your house and he's standing in the living room and you just walk up and crack him over the head with a baseball bat, then you're going to be in trouble. Because technically that's still an attack on someone that hasn't done anything. Well, besides the obvious. And for some people, straight off the bat, like myself, I'd be the lion, the witch, and the audacity of this bitch. Yeah, I'm going to crack you in the head with a baseball bat. But, okay, no, I'm actually sweet and innocent. So there is a line. I mean, which kind of person are you? Do you wait and see what's going to happen? Do you do the only thing we can do in Australia, and that's call the cops and hope they get here on time? What do you do? And how do you justify or rationalize your actions? Is it that you have an elderly parent? Do you have children sleeping? Are you scared because your partner's away? What's the deal, and when does it become something that doesn't factor anymore? So when your adrenaline kicks in and your fear or anger at the audacity, when does that happen? Because there's been a few cases in the Australian media in the last few years that I just found very interesting. First, I'm going to do a quick rundown of all the states in Australia and then their general overall view on what you're allowed to do if an intruder comes into your home. So first is South Australia. You can meet an intruder with force provided that it is warranted and doesn't escalate the situation, or you cause them grievous bodily harm or accidentally kill them. And only if you're defending an unjustified attack. So you can't just walk up to them and punch them in the face as soon as they walk in the door, which is a shame. Victoria! So get this, in a state that's populated quite densely with many different cultures, many different people with different backgrounds, different mindsets, different drug addictions, different mental illnesses, the self-defense was only written into their law in 2005. So previously it was only applying to cases of manslaughter, murder and violent offences, but now it's just generalised. In fact, the Victorian Police apparently have come out with some tips to follow if you ever do have an intruder in your house and you feel threatened. Number 1, go to a safe place. Call 000, which is our 911 999 number. Do your best to stay calm and think as clearly as possible, and if possible, put a physical barrier between you and the threat. Thanks. Western Australia, one of only 2 states that have an actual defence law about self-defence, and that works on the accepted rationale that you have the right to reasonably defend yourself against an unjustified attack, but you still can't give them any grievous bodily harm or, I guess, maim them so they can't get up or escape or something. Queensland. Same thing, you're allowed to use reasonable force if you think that is justified based on what the intruder is bringing at you. New South Wales. As per the 2001 New South Wales Crimes Act, a person was allowed to defend themselves against an intruder with necessary force, but an amendment in the early 2000s meant that people could only use that defense if they hadn't injured or killed the intruder. If the intruder was actually killed inside the home, potentially that defense law could bring it from murder down to manslaughter. So this has always been a really interesting topic to me because you've got both sets of adrenaline going, you've got any number of factors, like I was saying before, maybe you have a sleeping child in the next room and that escalates the way you're going to react. Maybe the intruder is high as fuck. Or maybe they've been threatened that they need money quickly tonight and, that's why they're doing it and their head's all about that. We're all at different levels. We're all at different reaction times and different emotions. And so blanket laws for any of this stuff have always really intrigued me. And so sometimes when I've seen things in the news, I'm thinking, what? That guy got in trouble? He got put in jail for defending his family? And sometimes I am quite the crime buff sometimes, and I saw this one about a man who had some teenagers that came into his house to rob him, and apparently it was not the first time, so he was already agitated, and I think he was expecting it. And there was a group of them, I believe, and it's actually recorded. He recorded himself killing them and then sort of talking over their dead bodies at the end and stuff. So I guess some people might use it as an excuse to exact a fantasy out. You've got another factor in that we live in Australia, so the good guys don't have guns, they don't have weapons. So if you're targeting a place, you're probably okay to walk in and just take what you want and do whatever you want to the people inside, because we don't really have a way of defending ourselves except to call the police, who just told us to find somewhere safe and called them. And the reason I'm saying this is because I had a guy, once knew a guy, but I used to work with this guy who was quite a loner, didn't really speak to anybody, had his headphones in the whole time, kind of aloof, where, you know, he knows more about the world than you do, and I just never questioned it because I didn't give a shit. But there was an occasion where he was speaking to us about an incident that happened to him the weekend before. And part of it was he was in his room and he was hearing noises outside in his apartment, I think ground floor obviously, like a prowler. And then as he was listening, he could hear this person come up to the window and start trying to prise it open with something. And apparently he was thinking to himself, I don't know what the hell I'm meant to do. So he yells out, "Hey, I'm calling the cops." And the intruder the would-be intruder on the other side just yells back, "Yeah, that's all you can do, you know, gay slur here." And he said he was standing there in his jocks and just said to himself, yeah, he was right. There's absolutely nothing I can do except maybe call the police, and the guy's going to be long gone, running down the road off to wherever. And I'm sure it happens everywhere, but it just seems to me that we do have quite a number of people that are taking the law into their own hands because they're feeling like maybe they're not being heard, they're not being protected, or they're not allowed to protect themselves, and just kind of losing their shit a bit. And so there are a couple of articles I've read lately, and I'm saying the last few years, of people that have taken the law into their own hands if they've come across someone that has stumbled into their house looking for a quick buck or whatever. It's hard to know where to stand because I've seen both sides. I've seen someone that has pressures of criminal organizations on them and they're having to do a certain thing to maintain even just staying alive, basically. I've seen people that feel that they have to do this because they need the money for someone sick, or the fact that they need them. Yes, they need the money for drugs because being dope sick is still sick. If in these circles these people get sick and they can't get a hit, then they're sick and vulnerable. So these people turn to crime to get the money. I've seen people think, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. If they set foot in my house, they've already signed their death warrant sort of thing. I can do what I want. They've given over that power to me to do whatever I want to them. They just signed up for it. I'm going to finish it. You know, so it's hard to know where you stand and what actually pushes you to either one of those types of perspectives. Again, like I was saying, I guess it depends in the moment and the circumstance, whether you're injured or you've got a sleeping baby or something. But it's a lot of thought that can only happen in hindsight, really. I guess even trained people can't do this. You see people accidentally, you know, letting guns go off and all sorts of stuff. The human mind is an odd thing. We all think we know what we would do in this situation. And unlike stand your ground states in America, we don't know for a fact that the law has our back here. Everything's if and maybe this, and if I explain this correctly, maybe people will be able to see what actually happened. It was self-defense. I was scared. We don't have the law essentially backing us here. I guess it's one of those things where, you know, some out of touch old bastard over the hill stupid bitch senator in, say, Congress says, oh, you know, if you don't have a gun, then the gunman will put his down too and everything will be great and we'll all kumbaya, my lord, into the fucking sunset. Well, that doesn't happen here. I don't think it happens anywhere, but whatever. You can't change someone's mindset by being a sheep when they're a wolf. But at the same time, in this country, if you're a wolf and you out-wolf the wolf, then you end up behind bars. So it's quite the predicament we're in sometimes in this country. I'd like to know what people in stand your ground states think, or those who have been in a situation where they've had to defend their property or the people in their property from a would-be intruder, and they feel that they've done the right thing and they've gone about it the right way. I want to know your story, because I think it's so interesting. Don't want to be one of those people that's asking you to sub and like, but if you feel like commenting or liking, that would help me out. It'll give me the power to do more of these episodes.